Hello, and welcome back to another Chris McPherson Show Daily Dose. It is time to pick apart the NBL Blitz. It's in our rear view mirror. The formal part of the preseason for the NBL for 25-26 is done and dusted. And here to talk it all with me is, of course, one of our hoops gurus, Ben Dunn. Good to have you back, Dunny.
G'day, long time no see.
It's been a little while, mate. There's been a lot of messaging back and forth about what's been happening in the preseason. And, of course, the Blitz isn't the only bit of the preseason. As I said, it's just that formal core piece. It was in Canberra this year. Really good turnouts there. But obviously we've got, New Orleans Pelicans coming out. We've got the European teams coming out. We've still got, well, we had some games in the lead up to this in terms of preseason friendlies as well. There's some more of those. But we're 2 weeks away as we record this. By the time it comes out on Friday morning, it'll be just under 2 weeks until our first game on the 18th of September. It's going to be a bit of a disjointed start for some teams, as it was last year, where we had teams that went over to the NBA, and so their starts were delayed. The same thing will happen for the likes of Sydney, Adelaide, Melbourne, Southeast Melbourne. Their starts will be a bit jostled, but it'll all sort itself out in the wash. I guess before we get into the Blitz, obviously the numbers, as I said, in Canberra were massive. And, we talked the other week about WNBL expansion on our weekly show, and it's great to see Tasmania getting a team. There's talk of another team. NBL expansion, something that's always tossed about. Geez, it's got to be a big tick in the plus column for Canberra, the numbers they got out there at AIS Arena.
Yeah, 100%. And look, they're a team, like obviously they had the Cannons years and years ago when we had the Falcons, all those sorts of things. But mate, it is a super competitive area for basketball. They have obviously the Center of Excellence and all that sort of stuff down there. But the Gunners just won NBL One East. It's such a really it's a hotbed of basketball down there, so they've definitely got it. They got a big feed area to draw from as well down there, and it's super competitive. So look, they're definitely a case for it. Newcastle, if we ever get a new stadium, we're definitely a case for it. Basketball is just booming all over the place, and I'm really excited for it. So yeah, it's great to see, and the fact that we generated so much international interest from it as well. I think there was something like 12 NBA scouts just there to watch the 10 games as well. So the league's obviously doing really well and has a lot of respect around the world. So it's good to see.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think, obviously, the Next Stars program has been a big focus, but, some of these NBA scouts, they were coming out here looking at certain players. Obviously, Dash Daniels is one of those, but Jalen Galloway as well, obviously, after his MVP showing at the Asia Cup was firmly in the sights as well. Plus, they're starting to cast an eye. It'll be interesting to see how that Next Stars program develops as NIL. I mean, you've got top tier players that are playing in the college game now who are earning as much as a whole NBL roster. So might be finding some diamonds in the rough there a little bit more than seeing the likes of a Ball or someone coming back out here. But you never know. Sometimes just the challenge and chance to play against men and prove that might be enough of an interest. But yeah, as you said, I think the other ones that they're looking at, Ben Henshaw and maybe Malik Lewis, were kind of on the radar of some of these NBA teams.
Yeah, all those sorts of names that we've sort of heard bandied about over the last little while that have sort of done all those big camps and been involved in hoop summits and stuff like that. Yeah, they're sort of still on the radar. But like you're saying, the NIL's really changed it now, and I think the ones that we're really going to have to sort of look at are the ones that probably aren't necessarily college eligible, but still need to sort of go down that route. And the one that comes to mind is probably Brandon Jennings. A few years back now, ended up playing with Bogut at the Bucks. He was someone that I guess didn't have the character, didn't necessarily have the marks that were going to get him into college, and went to China and got his way into the league that way. So yeah, I think with the NIL stuff coming in, it has definitely made it a lot trickier to sort of get those kids out of the college systems and get them downhill. But we've definitely shown that it is a legit pathway, and we do create talented players that can be successful in the league.
Yeah, certainly, mate. And you touched on the Gunners before. I'm pretty sure they actually won the NBL One national finals as well last week, just off the back of the Blitz. So on home court as well. So that was nice. It was all things basketball, excuse me, in Canberra over the last couple of weeks. But let's turn our eyes back to the NBL Blitz, and I guess on the court in terms of pure results, we had the arrangement where you got bonus points for quarters that you won. You also had match wins. We end up with a lot of teams sharing wins, but New Zealand and Tasmania were the only two teams that won both their games. New Zealand were dominant across both their games, winning comfortably, ended up taking it out, and I think they were deserved winners. And it's a good positivity for the Breakers. They looked impressive, but I guess I want to temper it because everyone's got to remember that the Brisbane Bullets, who were an absolute flame out at the back end of last year, were the team that won this in 24-25.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it is a preseason tournament. You touched on it before that other teams have things coming up with the Europeans and the NBA teams coming out and stuff. So I think some of them, particularly maybe like the Uniteds and Sydney's, had their focus elsewhere. And we're just using this to get a bit of run in the legs for some of the guys who probably hadn't really played together before. Try and build some of those, the chemistry and uh, those options for the season when the season proper actually hits. But yeah, I think some of them definitely had their eye on the bigger prize. But it's an interesting concept, the Blitz. Like there was 10 games over 5 days, that point system like you were talking about, the fact that we had teams finishing on like 25 points from two games. I'm like, how does this actually happen? But anyway, it's an interesting way of sort of getting it done and sort of picking a final few teams and stuff. But for the Breakers, they looked great, I thought. Brockington got the MVP, 29 and 3 he averaged over the 2 games, which is a fair output. And look, did we see an MVP preview there? Is he going to be up there with the Cottons and the Trezors and the Jabal McGee's when he turns up? And is he going to be in the mix with those guys? And can he sustain this for a full season? Well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we certainly will. I think in terms of, like, I took a lot of positivity out of this. One, it was great just to see some, I guess, organised basketball back. Not to say that the other preseason games haven't been organised, but we were talking about it just off air before. For me, it is really every one of these teams, like Sydney and Cairns, missing key players. You work your way up. Illawarra, they were trying some different things, mixing things up. Brisbane, new roster. I was really impressed with Freeman Liberty. Jalen Adams looking dangerous as well. I mean, he's Jalen Adams, right? Like, you don't need to know about what the talent is. Perth, they're still waiting to fill that last import spot, which we'll talk about. The Phoenix, they looked a little bit of a different sort of possession-based team. Josh King's looking at a few different things there. It was great to see them. As you said, Melbourne United gelling that, I guess, a bit smaller lineup. CG43 still to come back in. Adelaide didn't have everyone there. Tasmania, they were building. New Zealand obviously did really well as well. Tasmania were gritty. But yeah, and then, as I said, you look at some of these players. Javon Freeman Liberty really impressed me. The other one that really impressed me was Admiral Schofield for Cairns. I thought he's a big, mobile, physical guy who can use the ball as well. But yeah, like there's so many of these players that, I could mount a case after watching that for why every team is going to make the top four, let alone the play-in spots, which I'm pretty sure maths tells me can't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm no maths teacher, but yeah, 100%. I don't know how it's going to happen. And the comp is looking really even, which is great. Again, for the product that we're going to see out there, like you're not going to see someone winning by 100 points any week. So I think that's great for the league as well. Every match is going to go down to the wire, from what I can see. So the teams have been really strategic with their signings, and they seem to have really helped their lineups. Cairns, like you were saying, they're gonna be unreal once they sort of get everyone on board. Missing most of their imports for this. McVeigh obviously had a bit of a run. Ryan Smith still to come, so his shooting is gonna like take a lot of pressure off McVeigh. They're gonna be like the Australian Splash Brothers, from what I can tell. They're just gonna be firing everywhere. Phoenix, like you said, they've got like this pass. It's like almost like something out of a Disney movie. How often they're going to be moving the ball around. Um, they're basically a team by committee. They're going to have a dozen blokes score double figures every week. They're going to be tough to defend. United, they only had one game with Dickerman in charge, and when he was there, they absolutely blitzed it. Like I think they won by 25 that game. Smoked the Kings from memory. So yeah, look, it's going to be a great comp, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, Tasmania was a side. I really enjoyed that clash with Cairns and watching Majok Deng looks like he still hasn't he's got that traditional South Sudanese real lean build, but he was going toe to toe with Schofield, giving away plenty of size, but was throwing himself in there. I like what I saw of Tiger Campbell, Bryce Hamilton obviously lit up as well. They're just working out what's going to happen here at that starting point guard position. Josh Bannon, Will Magnay, they've got size there. Deng's going to come and pinch hit at different points. Even Archie Woodhall, as a development player, I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to see out of him. So that's really exciting. I want to talk about Perth a little bit and a couple of pieces. One, as I said, they've still got an import spot to fill. But Dylan Windler, for me, look, he's come out of Belmont University. John Riley's been really excited about him. I'm really, loving what we saw from him. 27.7 rebounds in that game. It's just, he's the man maybe to fill some very big shoes there.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and he looks a real player, and getting the ball in his hands a little bit more is obviously going to be crucial for Perth to sort of unlock his abilities and make sure that they don't miss out on someone like Bryce Cotton too much. But yeah, look, the import spot, like you've touched on, there's reports coming out during the week that they were offered Patrick Beverley and they knocked him down, knocked him back. So it does beg the question, who have they got lined up? If you've got someone of a Patrick Beverley quality who can come in, who can defend the Bryce Cottons, who can slow Delhi down, who's capable of knocking in a three every now and then, probably not to the level of some of the guys, but he's been an NBA level talent. He's got that NBA three ball in his back pocket. You'd think he'd be someone that they'd be very interested in, but they knocked him back. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see who they've got lined up and who might come in to fill that last spot.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people that have been attached in inverted commas to that, and I guess Ian Clark was one that they had conversations with. Obviously, he's a known player. I think, that, as you said, they got offered Patrick Beverley, Travis Trice as well, who we've seen in the NBL previously. He didn't sort of eventuate. They looked at Mason Jones, I believe, who's the reigning G League Finals MVP. So he's a great option. Yuri Collins as well, who's on the radar. He's been with the Santa Cruz Warriors in the G League. But the one that there's a lot of noise around Ja'Cory McLaughlin, who obviously spent the Blitz with Illawarra, possibly a short-term contract to happen there. So that might be one to watch. I'm looking through all that list, and I'm just going. If I've got an empty spot on my roster, I'm not disappointed by anyone that we've just gone through.
Yeah, that's right. And look, there's still some NBA teams who are obviously going to make some cuts with their training camp rosters. So I wonder if they've got maybe a promise from someone who's over there with a team that may be looking to come back. So I don't know. It's all up in the air. But look, Perth look really solid, and if they can get a decent import to sort of fill out that roster, I don't know how we're going to fit four teams into that top four.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a look at their roster already, though, as I said, Windler, Christian Doolittle, Joe Luala-Chul, even Sunday Desh has been a great pickup from Jesse Wagstaff, like Ben Henshaw. Like, this is a team already that, you could argue is, they've got Aquera, Elijah Pepper. This is a pretty solid looking team when you have a look through it. Like, Jesse Wagstaff's probably going to be on their third rotation, like, and he's the team captain. So,
Yeah.
um, it's a pretty stacked team, and if they can find someone in there, I mean, obviously they've got some options around Sunday and Elijah who can probably rotate through that point. They're not going to be your gun and go point, but they're not in a position where they absolutely have to pull the trigger if the right guy's not there, and you feel that that's where John Riley's at with it.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right, and that's I guess the quality of their team is giving them the ability to be a bit patient with it and make sure that they fill that spot correctly. And look, maybe it is more of a traditional point guard that they're after, so that they've got someone who can move the ball and or even make a little bit of depth off the bench for them, so that they've got someone that can come in and splash some threes once the game slowed down a bit. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, and I look forward to seeing who they're going to sign and how that's going to shake up the league because looking at some of these teams, it's going to be really tough to try and slow them down and get one of those top four positions and make sure that you're in the driver's seat come finals time.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, I've got the Kings colours on the pink game a couple of years ago. Uh, not a lot to take out of this if you're a Kings fan. I think the one thing we took a bit out of it is I will be extremely surprised if Matthew Dellavedova, who got 18 assists in 2 games, is not absolutely dominating. I think Xavier Cooks was quoted saying, basically, Delhi passes him the ball when he doesn't realise he's open. He goes, sometimes in training I wear it in the side of the head.
Yeah,
Which when you're not talking about it, you or me getting the ball in the side of the head, that would be expected quite regularly. Zero peripheral vision, very little athleticism. No, that's us, not Xavier Cooks. This Sydney Kings team, obviously a slow start, but again, Gorge will be making sure that they're ready to go. They're betting down all of their players. They didn't have everyone on deck. I mean, again, they look like they were sort of just happy to go through the motion. Some teams took this very seriously, and Kenneth Davis being out as well. Others were, a little bit less serious. But I thought we saw some really good glimpses. Tim Suarez being back was one that he really excited me when I saw that signing, and I was pretty comfortable with what we saw from him. He looked like he's mostly in third or fourth gear.
yeah. I think, like I said, Sydney seemed to be one of those teams that have got to focus on other things. They weren't really prioritising the blitz as something to really hang their hat on. I think they were definitely using it as a bit of a warm up to bigger and better things. So I think they're more focused on the games coming up.
Yeah, well, you look at that projected starting five: Dellavedova, Davis, Bull Qual, who just went to another level next year, Xavier Cooks, who we saw at the Asian Cup, and then Tim Suarez. You've got guys like Jalen Galloway and Quat Noy coming off the bench. Amongst the veteran Sean Bruce as well. They're looking very good. I
Consistent
think for
performance,
me though,
for
sorry,
sure.
mate.
I was just saying, consistent performers in that team across the board. You know what you're going to get from those guys, and when it gets tough, they know exactly what they're going to run, who they're going to get the ball to, and what the likely outcome is. So yeah, I'm not worried about the Kings at all.
No, I think they've cleared up. There was a little bit of too many cooks last year. I think Gorge has sorted that out a bit better balance there. Really looking forward to seeing that. In terms of what we've seen, in terms of signings so far, in terms of obviously performance at the Blitz, take from that what you will. Is there someone who you just say like they're the out and out favourites at this point? I mean, I've got mine in terms of it. I've got probably one side, not out and out, but probably they've got a foot in front of the rest of the pack at the moment in terms of who they've signed, and it's not going to be a surprise to anyone. That's Adelaide 36ers.
Yeah, look, I think the 36ers, with how good their team looked without those three big names that we mentioned before, Isaac White, to me, he's probably the next big up and coming Australian star. Like, he's got the real potential, probably a little bit of a slower burn, more like the Joe Ingles type. But once he sort of really figures out his game, he is an absolute talent. He can score the ball, he can distribute the ball, he defends really well. He's got really good feet, really good lateral movement. He stays in front of everyone. So, I think he's someone to definitely watch this year and to sort of see how he gels with those guys, and the development that he gets from playing with someone like Bryce Cotton is going to be invaluable. And I really look forward to seeing him develop for sure.
Yeah, I think what he's going to learn from Bryce Cotton, and also spending some time also with DJ, and like he's one of the absolute workers off the court you hear about. So, but you have a look at this team for Adelaide, and coming off their bench, Isaac White and Montrezl Harrell, like they're starting five: Cotton, DJ, Flynn Cameron, Zylan Cheatham, and Isaac Humphries. Yeah, good problems they have in Adelaide. I'll tell you what, the biggest problem they're going to have in Adelaide is trying to find more seats to put people in. They had that problem last year on that late run. It's only going to get worse. I think Newcastle might need a new stadium. I think Adelaide does too.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, like you talked about Freeman Liberty before, like he is elite with Adams and Prather there. Harrison and Duke is still to come. Like Brisbane's going to be a lot better this year than they were last year. You think they've got a bit of a point to prove as well. Mate, I cannot wait for this season.
Yeah, I'm chomping at the bit. As we said, it starts in a couple of weeks. Last year we went into the season, there was probably two or three sides I thought, yeah, they might try and scrap. And, I looked at Cairns, I looked at New Zealand. I probably looked at Adelaide as well at the time, early in the season. I mean, I don't think, and even Brisbane, when they won that Blitz, I was kind of like, those three or four, like, they might stumble their way into the play-ins, but I don't see them really, making a dent. I'm not in that position this year. Like, I'm just sitting there going, if you told me any of these teams finish in the top three, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm buying. Like, as I said, I've got 10 teams fitting into five spots, not even six.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we haven't even really touched on Phoenix or United. Like, I know we talked about Phoenix, how they're going to be moving the ball and stuff, but like United, mate, they are so good and so strong, and like the players that they have lost with Delhi and Jack White and stuff like that, and they don't seem to have missed a step. They still seem that they can be dominant. They can score the ball. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be a toss of the coin this year, and like you said, I mean, 36ers are probably they're a solid one at the moment, but two, three, four, five, take your pick. Like just throw your cards on the table and see where they figure out. I guess. I,
Yeah,
like
it's
I wouldn't be surprised where anyone ends up.
no, 100%. Obviously Josh Brown's looked really good there for Southeast Melbourne. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of Lens Blindberg. He's obviously played some really good European basketball, and then they've got Geordie Hunter, Angus Glover. Every team, like I just look at them and I'm just like, oh, when you just sit and focus in on one team, I'm like, well, they're going to win it.
Yeah,
It's absolutely wild. But as I said, competition will get underway on the 18th of September. Not that far away. As I said, it's going to be a bit lopsided. If you're, Sydney Kings or an Adelaide fan, you're going to have to hold your breath a little bit later to really see your team in action. Melbourne and Southeast Melbourne will get underway, then take a little bit of a break. But Tasmania versus Melbourne United on the 18th. That's the Thursday night. Into the Friday night, New Zealand versus Brisbane, and then we get into the weekend. And we rock, we roll, and we head all the way through October. We've got the Ignite Cup as well. There's so much more basketball again this year. I think there's a period there over Christmas, sort of around that period from maybe about I'm going to say around the 17th of December. And then we go all the way through. And I think the next day that we don't have any basketball is the 6th of January. And then we've got another like 6 days. So basically, over a period of about 4 straight weeks, we have one night that has no basketball over Christmas, which, mate, I'm just pumped about. We've got some plans to try and get some live watch-alongs with yourself. We've got a few other guys getting involved, Big Nate Campbell as well. Where I know you're keen for it, I'm keen for it. We're hopefully going to get some good tune in and some comments as we pick apart a few games over this whole season that'll suit. So can't wait for that. And until then, mate, a big thank you for giving up some time tonight to pick apart the Blitz and count down those 2 weeks. Set the counter. What will we count down hours, not days, very shortly.
Yeah, absolutely, we will be, and buying some tickets to go down to see some games in person too.
I've booked the Christmas Day tickets already. I can't wait. But a big thank you to everyone for tuning in. Of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube down below. Hit the bell as well. You get notifications about all of our episodes dropping when those lives are coming again later in the season. If you haven't already, check out our weekly Around the Grounds episode with Lockie Avil. But as always, a big thank you to you, Ben Dunn. And for everyone else, we'll see you again soon for your home of the black and white of all your sport. No grey opinions here.